Now, let's learn about the JSX syntax. Please create a new project as you learned in the previous video. You can name your project whatever you like when you create it. And in this project, I left this part of the code in the app CSS file, rather than deleting it. I did this because it looks better when elements on the web page appear in the center. And if you import it in this way in app component, the style is applied globally. Soon you'll see other ways to apply CSS. In this video, we'll explore the JSX syntax by writing code in this app component file. First, comments in JSX are written in this format. If you wrap the ends like this, it is recognized as a comment. Actually, today's editors or IDEs toggle comments on the line where the cursor is or selected lines by pressing the Command or Control key and / together, so I don't really need to tell you this. Here's a principle to remember when writing tags. In JSX, one must always close the tags like this. Even for tags that are used alone, like the image tag or break tag, you should always close it with a / like this. If even one tag does not comply with this, an error will occur on the page like this.
HTML is forgiving and usually lets things slide, but this seems a bit fussy.
Although the code may look like HTML, you should remember that it is a document that will be compiled in JavaScript. Let's take a look after writing code like this up here. You can see that elements written in JSX format are each stored as constants. This means they are transformed into some data that can be used in JavaScript. After writing the code that outputs these as logs like this, run the developer tools in your browser and open the tab named Console. You can explore the inner items of each object by clicking these arrows. There's no need to analyze each one, but you can see that these JSX elements are approximately turned into these kinds of JavaScript objects. They become basic units forming the virtual DOM. Because JSX elements are such objects to be translated into JavaScript, they require stricter syntax compliance than HTML. I'll keep these elements stored in constants for insertion into the page later. Now, let's take a closer look at brace expressions. I'm going to add these sections to the code. A curly braces expression is quite literally an expression within curly braces. An expression refers to a piece of code that returns some value, or in other words, can be replaced by some other value. Here, language is a constant that returns the string JavaScript. Because it returns a value within, and this can be replaced by the string JavaScript, this constant is also an expression. This curly braces expression containing it is rendered like this on a web page. So, you can see the text JavaScript appears on the web page like this. What do you think will happen if we adjust the code like this? As you can see, an error occurs and nothing appears on the screen. That's because the keyword hello world in this context is not declared as any variable or constant. You can check it like this in the console of the developer tools. If you want to put the string hello world inside these braces, you have to enclose it with quotes like this to make it a string. Of course, in such cases, it would be better to write it like this without braces. Anyway, brace expressions in JSX are used to render code snippets that return certain types of values on the screen. Let's find out which expressions can be used through examples. After creating a component like this, please insert it in the app. The result will be as shown on the right. You can pause the screen for a moment and look at the code. We're going to use the values in these constants in brace expressions. Using variables or constants directly in brace expressions is like the code we saw a little while ago. Expressions returning strings can be used in brace expressions. Next is an expression that adds 1 to a constant containing 25. This expression returns a number. Numbers can also be used in brace expressions. Next is an expression that adds a string to a string. This also returns a string, so it can be used in a bracket expression and rendered as shown on the right. String interpolation also returns a string, so it's also possible. The problem is this boolean. As you can see, you have explicitly converted it into a string and put it in a bracket expression. If you put a boolean value as it is, it won't result in an error, but it won't be rendered on the screen like this. That's why we need to convert it like this into a string. In other words, among primitive data types, things that can be rendered in a bracket expression are strings and numbers. Next, we're going to cover the usage of objects and arrays. Please insert this component into the app as well. Actually, if you realize that these curly bracket expressions also take values that return strings and numbers. There's nothing special about it. Let's move on quickly. In case of objects, you access the values via keys like this. As both return strings, you can see the result like this on the right. You access the arrays via indices like this. The returned string is also rendered. If you access the length property of the array, the size of the array is returned as a number. Therefore, this also appears successfully on the web page. Below are strings returned as the result of the array going through a mapping or filtering process and then joining. If you've learned JavaScript's functional methods, you'll be able to read this easily. Those who find this section difficult can skip it for now. We'll go into more details on rendering arrays soon, and we'll also cover mapping and filtering. Here are some examples of function call statements. Please insert this component into the app as well, so it appears on the web page as shown on the right. These are simply executing functions that return strings or numbers too. As such, the result of executing a function that returns a string is rendered and displayed as shown on the right. The two lines immediately below are also getting values from the declared functions. Moreover, it is also possible to create and execute an anonymous function within the curly brace expression like this.
So, all JavaScript expressions that return strings or numbers can be used, right?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to show you through these examples. Here's your last example. You remember how we stored JSX elements in constants at the beginning. These JSX elements can also be used in curly brace expressions like this. So now you can see the rendered results on the web page to your right. In the next video, we will learn about ways to write JSX utilizing this point. We will continue in the next video.